live. Hello. Now I'm gonna go click all the buttons that say, "Hey, we're live" everywhere. Da, 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 da. Got that. I gotta go drop this in some servers. Yeah, welcome. Oops, not that button. I want. Do. Can't do it. Okay. And I go up here. Also, sorry if I am very quiet right now as I think about all of these things. How is everyone doing? Copy the invite. Okay, that'll be good enough. Okay, woohoo! Oh, thanks, Gunny. Have a good meeting. Crunch. Crunch. Alright, well, in that case, Hey, but I'm Tish. Hey, Stick, welcome in. So today we are going to be talking about action, and we will be discussing, let's see, like how is a good way to portray action in comics, like tips and tricks for how to get things across, and also what the point of action is in a narrative sense, and like what are some good uses of action, things like that. Action figures, hooray! um, and as has happened the last couple of times, um, Ari will be continuing to play Stray. He is about halfway through the game, I think, and yeah, yeah, honestly, yeah, this is a more actiony section, so hooray! Perfect. And then I will be working on the chapter 4 cover for Tamberlane in between raffling off some sketches, some free sketches. 5 minute. 5 minute doodles. So, with that said, I'm gonna switch us over to the live stream screen. I do talk good. Make the talk talk. Yeah, one day. Not today though. Here we go. Live. Yeah. I know, right? It's so cool. All right. Go up here. All right, cool. Oh, we can't hear Ari. Oh, hold on. Uh that's because I don't have your Discord going through the correct places. That's my bad. Let me switch out outputs. Okay.
Testing, testing. Hello,
All
my
right, y'all
friend.
should be able to hear him now. My bad. Yo, yeah, it was my fault. Sorry, guys. Oh, good, you can hear him. He's
It's a conspiracy. I've never been live on mic. Caitlin just talks uh
correct.
alone, and I'm just talking to the void.
That's right. Oh, hey, Beckety. Hey, Kaiser. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right. Awesome. So I'm gonna start things off real fast with a. Yeah, I am a pro voice actor. Hey, Keeper. Oh shoot, I need to start up my bot. I'm totally on top of things.
we are. I mean, to be fair, you got CozyCon coming up. Lots of prep,
Right.
lots going on.
I don't really mind. I'm just gonna be a little behind brain-wise for like the next million years, and that's fine.
Honestly, that you gotta get tired to get things done, right?
That's right. Uh,
All right.
so okay, as
The
soon as my bot starts up, I'm gonna do a
raffle.
giveaway, a raffle.
The
Let's
word should be prepared.
prepared. That works for me. Let me find the correct. Here we go. This is a doodle raffle, and the command will be prepared. All right, so I'm gonna start a raffle. It'll be for a 5 minute doodle. So I set a 5 minute timer, and then I draw your whoever wins. I draw them a thing, and so make sure that you have a reference available, like a visual reference available and ready in case you win. Um, it's pretty much going to be artist's choice for pose and stuff because there's only so much one can do in 5 minutes. So yeah, so I'm gonna
Do
start
it.
the raffle. You got 1 minute to type. Uh, wow, that didn't save at all. Hold on. What? Oh, it's because I hit the wrong button. Okay, there we go.
For giveaway item. Type
Right?
$sign giveaway command in chat, and the next $sign give time limit minutes to enter.
This is super good. We're doing great
I
here,
want
guys.
followed by the word prepared.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
Everyone's like, I'm prepared. Are you? I'm like, no.
No.
I'm
Oakwood
sorry.
Oak, Oakwood got confused. Oakwood's kind of old. You got to give him some time.
Yeah.
Oakwood bot.
Yeah, you gotta rattle his brain a little bit. Like,
This
hey guys.
feels like Oakwood is handed the wrong piece of paper, and he's a old stodgy jerk, and so he reads it literally, and you're just like,
Yeah.
no, he's like, here's what you handed me. A
Sounds
giver,
correct.
$sign gives away item.
So what you're saying is Apple is Oakwood in this case.
Apple is the only person who can possibly win this competition right now. All
Yes,
right.
Oakwood does need a helping hand. Keeper, you won again. Congratulations. Just drop your link in chat of what you'd like me to draw or who you'd like me to draw, and I will get on
Why
that.
you'd like her to draw?
Yeah, why? Why do you want me to draw? Why do you do this to me?
Not yet, Apple, but give it time. We all become old codgers eventually. All right, here we go. We are entering the sewers. Last time we found a robot guy. My narration is incredible. We found a robot guy. I don't remember his name. Who had gone missing in the sewers a while ago. We got him back, and by doing so, he brought back with him a weapon, which allowed us to fight the headcrab guys off, giving us a shot. So now we're trying to get to the surface with a
Yeah.
little laser beam, and perfect timing to talk about action.
Yeah, and I believe the guy's name was Doc. So there you go. Robot Doc.
Yes.
Yeah, so action. Most of what I have to say about action is, oh, I have a reference ready. Um, so many meows. Is about how one does action in comics. That's what I'm most familiar with. Um, and so real fast now, I am going to reload my countdown so that it will start over. All right, cool. 5 minutes.
All right. Yeah, I have some degree of knowledge about action in other mediums, so if you'll have questions, I can definitely give it a best shot. But let's talk about. I guess let's start with like, what do we mean by action?
Yeah, that's true. Uh, when I think of action, I definitely think of like fight
Before we continue,
scenes.
wow, this is look at how wonderful this guy was able to summarize what happened in a single sentence. I can't believe you found Doc and got the defluxer. With this, now I can go to find the broadstar. Okay, great, that's what's happening. He did
Perfect.
it way better than I could. Thank you. All right, off we go.
So
iPad man is gonna take me into the dark.
yeah, so I think of fight scenes when I think of action, although it doesn't have to be fight scenes. It can be things like a car chase
Sure.
or any kind of high octane, fast moving thing with a lot of tension.
Yeah. So there's a chase scene. Doesn't have to have fighting in it, but it can basically just it. I would say that when a fight scene is effective, at least in my opinion, it is telling a story entirely through motion and literal act taking. Like you have fight scenes, right, where it's just a couple guys punching each other, but I would immediately point to what I always say is the best fight scene of all time, which is the fight between the Man in Black and Inigo Montoya in The Princess, where not only is the choreography done well and with intention, but they both are fighting for a very defined reason. The way they fight reflects on and teaches us about the kind of characters they are, and the stakes of the fight are clear on both sides, and we understand why both of them want to win.
Yeah.
And I think that is an area where I haven't had a chance to put that many action sequences in what I've written. I have some in Mothorial that are for far later, but that isn't going to be relevant until, time comes. Hello, Momo, anything you want to tell me? Yes, I can. So basically, I've had a chance to write a couple, and the first time I wrote one of the action scenes I wrote, characters, I wrote down the motion, the actions they took, and he swings his sword, and this happens, and I was like, okay, cool. And then later I was going back and looking at the scene again, and I was like, this doesn't really have any emotional impact. It's just a couple people slashing at each other. And a lot of people fix that. I mean, Princess Bride admittedly does this, and it works in this case. Sometimes it works to have the characters riff with their dialogue while they're fighting. That isn't always the best route, but if you're not going to take that route, you have to make sure that the actions they're taking and the reason they're taking the actions and everything are well defined in your head, so that the audience can understand. Like, maybe a character is feeling defensive about themselves, and so they take on a defensive stance. They aren't taking forward action, they're stepping back. Maybe a character's angry and wants to make his point, so he literally is stepping forward. He is engaged and he is attacking. The way a character fights and the way a character engages with another character in an action sequence can be super engaging and doesn't have to sacrifice character, and in fact should really engage with character. And I think a lot of why we think of action movies as dumb, right? That's a whole stereotype. Oh, what? No! This action sequence taught us about the character of me and that I suck.
Yeah, I fully agree. I didn't have a chance to do a lot of action in Tamerlane for a while, but then we had the river sequence. And...
which we definitely should talk about as an example of an informed, one we actually did, for sure.
Yeah. And it was definitely an opportunity for me to be able to, for us to be able to, showcase that Tamerlane has agency, something that she rarely actually has in the story, and that given her agency, that she was able to go forward and help someone in need.
Jesus Christ! Give me a sec. No! No! Jump! No! Oh no.
I love that the further that we get into this game, discussion is going to get less and less as you're like, shit, oh god, help.
Less cogent. I always take a little bit of time to readjust to B being A and X being Y when I play this game, and I can't fix it, and I'm driven. Probably should look it up. There's probably a way to fix that. I think it's just kind of... I think it's just defaulting to Xbox, and I'm playing on a Switch controller. I don't think it's ever been meant for that. Anyway, yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the river sequence. I want to be clear. This river sequence was not something that we brought to the table new. That was something that Caytlin intended to be there for a very long time.
Yeah, the first...
I just image in her head of it.
Yeah, the first time that I actually was originally going to have that river sequence, or something like it, happen in Chapter 2, when whatchamacallit, brain.
Oh my god! I'm so trouble with this. I jumped up and then fell down again. Just. I will not stop killing the cat. I'm okay. I was trying to make reference to the what was that one famous book about screenwriting? Save the Cat.
Oh yeah, Save the Cat. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're just trying real hard.
I never read that book.
Clearly.
You can see that I never read that book. But
But
yeah,
yeah, so I was
that was
originally
really
doing this for, I was really gonna drown Tamberlane in Chapter 2. And so in the comic, when she falls into a barrel in the river, in Chapter 2, that was originally going to instead be a sequence where she went underwater and Belfry was going to go and rescue her. I think actually there was a brief period of time where it was actually going to be Tess who rescued her, etc. But that didn't work in the flow of the story or the points that I was trying to make at the time. So it got kind of moved into the floating bucket of this is stuff that I will pull from later. And so it thankfully came up in Chapter 4. You know, it's just like a long-term goal to drown my character, apparently. Okay.
I like don't know how to get off this place. This is insane. Oh, he got through. Oh, you have to wait for him. Sorry, I never realized you have to wait for him. That explains it completely. Okay, now we're fine. The whole time I didn't realize he got through. Fool!
Tamberlane was the Goku we made along the way. Yes.
Yeah, Caitlin and I were talking about that actually also, by the way. Yeah, when we've been going through the story again, you know, to make corrections for the final version of it. It's like little dialogue tweaks. And we talked about how that river sequence kind of became a foreshadowing event.
Yeah.
I'm assuming everyone remembers that in Chapter 2, she falls in the river and Belfry basically saves her with the barrel.
Yeah. Oh, Space Wolf, thank you for following.
Thank you so much.
Identity design. Where did I save my freaking signature? I always lose this. I need to put it in a better place. What have I done? Okay. I'm gonna have to just search. Anyway, actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm not gonna search. I'm just gonna sign my freaking name. God. Alright. I can do this. I'm alive. Anyway, so yeah, when we finally got around to doing the river sequence, I knew that I wanted it to be dynamic, that I wanted to like really try and lean in and practice action, because it is not something that I have practiced a lot of, you know? I do a lot more of the kind of drama as opposed to like actually like action stuff. So
Yeah, interestingly, like a big part of figuring out that sequence was so what's what Mom has to say. Almost broke around. We can only open it manually. Of course, that's true. All right, cool. One of the examples of where I brought, and I'm not trying to act like this is like my philosophy that isn't like clearly the baseline of like any good action sequence, but I brought like what I knew about action from like the classes I'd taken and the books I'd read and things I studied. The idea that we needed to have really clear stakes, and I figured that, you know, I cannot say what happens to Tamberlane, but I had a feeling that we needed to figure out a deeper understanding of the stakes than just Tamberlane falls in a river. Because there'd be some people who wouldn't even engage in the scene. They'd be like, well, the story's called Tamberlane, you're not going to kill her off in Chapter 4, probably. So I was like, what can we do to, like... Because we had, you know, the futures of our characters weren't defined, right? We don't know. We didn't have any plans for Jonas, really, because when we came to Chapter 5, we were like, we're taking a step back, taking all the ideas that Caitlin had already had, and engaging with them and figuring out like a game plan for the rest of the story. And this sequence really was representative of like a turning point. It always had been meant to. It's partially why I was brought on around that time.
Yeah.
And
So I was like, okay, I know it's time. It's time to do more things, and I don't know how to do it. and I have all of these ideas and no idea how to connect them, and it's getting to be very overwhelming. We are fast approaching the time where I am out of all of the things I knew would happen. Help!
So that was a thank you, little man. I can't go with you. I won't stop looking for a way. I will tell them you were brave. You pulled a chain and you sat in the raft. You were. Oh, what? Oh no! Oh my God, we are abroad. Piper coming to you.
Gross.
Piper coming to you from abroad. So yeah, I will not say what happens to Jonas because that's not the point. The point though is people are much more easily able to engage with the emotions of a scene when you have a character that you genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that 100% know what this does to Tamburlaine, but people just wouldn't engage. It's like, I'm gonna give an example. Like, if that's where you're reading Lord of the Rings, and in chapter 1, Frodo's like, "I'm in danger, Gandalf," and you're like, "Okay, it's Frodo." He's like, they're not gonna. He's probably gonna be fine. He could have mental effects coming from this, but he probably won't die.
Right.
And
exactly.
I think, we had the idea that Kerr would cause Tamburlaine to fall in this river, whether intentionally or unintentionally. That was kind of what we were figuring out at the time. And because of that, we wanted there to feel like there was a consequence for these children in this sequence beyond just, okay, Tamburlaine falls in and that's pretty rotten. We were like, okay, why are they fighting? For instance, one of the things I really focused on was I really wanted to put a lot of attention into the monologue that Kerr gives when he tells Tamburlaine why he hates her.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
much.
In fact,
because we had
as we were leading up to that point, and I was writing the script, and and you were like, okay, this part earlier in the script where Kerr swears, you should take that out because it'll be more important for him to swear in that monologue so that we know he's serious and make it actually be kind of a jarring, oh my God, he said a word.
I'm sure you've noticed that we generally have had those words censored in the comic up till now. That one wasn't, because that was meant to be like, oh, this sequence is going to be a little different than what we've seen before.
Exactly. And come on, brain, make the thing. So when we were doing the river sequence, it was an opportunity to take those stakes and to give them a new dimension instead of just keeping it into a constant re-loop of talking and yelling and talking and yelling and talking and yelling until finally, it elevates it into something more dangerous with more heft and weight. And then add that element of danger on top, especially with the threat of what might happen if something goes horribly wrong, right? So yeah, I would definitely say, to Ari's point, that it having that sense of stakes and that sense of things escalating and the whole there should be a reason why this is happening, right?
Yeah,
it's
you
not just
don't have to Yeah, you don't have to like both sides of the fight. You can it's good to have a bad guy or an antagonist, but you have to understand. Even if understanding doesn't mean that you agree, a character can be really evil, but you have it's why really engaging villains. It's why I loved. I forget his character's name now, but the main villain in Black Panther.
Oh yeah,
had
I forget
a
his name
genuinely engaging and understandable reason for why he did what he did. I didn't agree with his methods, but I understood why he took them. And to me, that's the kind of thing that, is... This music is so dramatic, I'm, expecting something terrible to happen. That's kind of where I think a lot of my learning came from, is, how they say, to write, you have to be able to read? I think one of the biggest things that can help a comic writer, besides reading comics, besides reading comics, obviously, is watching film.
Yeah.
When I'm writing comics, it's playing in my head like I'm doing the storyboarding for a movie.
Yeah, yeah.
The most important moments of a given sequence, right? Like it's not meant to be. Um, writing a comic is more like writing a film than it is like writing a book. And so
Yeah.
that actually does come into play in how you write the action sequence. I couldn't authoritatively give a great sense for how to write an action sequence in a book, though I've tried before. It's challenging. It's a very different art than writing in a visual medium.
Yeah.
Visuals make it a lot easier to write action sequences, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. That said, there are a lot of conventions that are important to keep in mind when you're scripting an action sequence in comics. Um, like the the relationship between panels and time. The more panels you have on the page, the longer it takes the eye to travel, and therefore the longer the page seems. However, um, so in like if you take that, then you might want to do fewer panels for a faster page. But on the other hand, if you have a lot of small panels,
Hissing cat. Hissing cat. The cat when I say it's time for a bath.
yeah. If you have a lot of small panels in a row or whatever, then that has a very frenetic feeling. So if you're going for something frenetic, especially if they're like up close, not very like full picture, right? Like your eye is traveling around, like darting around, looking at things, but it's not quite complete. So if you're looking for that frenetic feeling, then having more small panels is a better idea.
Oh, for sure.
But
I also want to point out that I'm using, ironically, we were talking about action this whole time. I forgot this entire time that I could fire a laser at these guys.
Oh.
And that was why it was so hard for me. And now they're having a twist where my robot's just, like, not functioning, so I no longer have it. And I'm like, same as always, y'all. I forgot I had it. So, like, I had a gun, and I didn't use it at all.
That is hilarious. You are pacifist cat.
The pacifist run. Anyway, yeah,
And then, one more thing. If you're doing a page, like, I definitely have a preference generally for fewer panels on pages with a lot of action, because it gives you a bigger space to show what's actually happening.
Pacifist! I got a pacifist achievement! Heck yeah!
Nice.
Oh, since I went to the entire story without killing a single one. Oh my god, that's amazing. Okay, continue.
That's awesome.
I accidentally got an achievement.
Yeah, that's totally fine, Keeper. And also, good evening, Corgi. Welcome in.
Welcome.
So the only problem with having fewer, larger panels is that you have to make those panels really count, and you need to be able to show the action and like really lean into it. And then, welcome, Gunny. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that you can depict action in comics. Those are kind of the easiest slapdash, kind of like bulleted point ways to look at. And I definitely really enjoy having fewer panels with bigger illustrations, especially if you can have at least one that breaks out of a panel or is borderless, because it shows that the action is extending or is like really like it's so intense that it is breaking out of the mold and format of the comic. Okay, I'm done now. You can talk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see this is an area that I definitely have less experience in because I'm not a visual artist at by but I will give like a maybe a writer's perspective on one of the things that's intimidating about writing a fight scene, right? Is that you think, well, I don't know, like what move is the most strategic, right? And like
Right.
to a certain extent, you have to think about that when you're writing a character. It's like I'm a master swordsman or whatever. And I'll let this happen. What are we doing? Okay,
Hi,
cool.
Title. Thank you. And also, hey, Beckmanator. Nice to see you here.
Oh my god.
We're supposed to stretch. I'm
Oh my
stretching.
god. You were human. Oh my god, this guy was human. What? I need a moment. You go ahead and have your moment, buddy. So here's how I would describe it. But I'm gonna pause on the game because I know I'm gonna get a cutscene. I don't want to get my brain split into two things.
Yeah.
So when you're writing a fight scene, and I mentioned this kind of before, but the fight, the motions should not carry the emotions. Emotions should carry the motions.
Okay, yeah.
Figure out what your characters are feeling at any given moment and allow the actions they take to reflect that. The other character responding to that, what you are doing is you are creating subtext for your fight. Your fight is no longer just he swung his sword and Michael parried, and then Michael stabbed at him, and then George parried, and then George slipped up, and Michael stabbed him in the gut. Like, okay, like that's. But if you start from a place of George is angry at Michael, and he's clenched his teeth and he stabbed forward, and Michael grinned as he swept to the side, and you have like, oh wow, Michael, there's a superiority here, and suddenly like, okay, now George is this underdog, and like those little touches of like, okay, now that Michael has easily dodged George, and has kind of snidely made it clear that he does not see him as an equal foe, George is gonna feel insecure. He might do kind of what George Lucas has Luke Skywalker do in Return of the Jedi, where he's just swinging his lightsaber madly. He's not even trying anymore because he's so upset. He's so emotionally distraught. And that's a much more compelling fight scene. I always thought the fight scene in Return of the Jedi was more compelling to me than the fight scene in Phantom Menace, despite the Phantom Menace's fight scene being very visually pleasing. It's very cool. But when you're watching that fight scene in Return of the Jedi, and he's just swinging his lightsaber like a lunatic, and he's not even like doing a good job, and he's missing every time, all you can think is, oh my god, he's losing it. He can't contain that. He's so upset. But like all the training he has is not coming to anything right now because he's not accessing it.
Yeah.
And that's more engaging than, well, they're really good at fighting. I'm not saying you can't have a really good fight with really good fighters, but you have to carry it with some degree of emotion, some degree of meaning beyond just the swords are swinging. And I think that you can connect that to so I in volume 5 of Mothorial, I have a line that I wrote, and I don't know if it's BS or not. I genuinely don't, but it's like my instinct for how I feel a fight should go. I have a character in that part say, people say that fighting is like a dance. And they disagree with that idea because in a dance, you are trying to match your opponent or trying to match your partner. In a fight, you are trying to exploit your opponent. You are not trying to match them, you're trying to do the opposite. You're taking whatever they do and finding the way to exploit that weakness. Find whatever they're not paying attention to, and that's where you turn. And that can both be physically, but also emotionally. Finding their weak point emotionally and exploiting that. So you have two characters who are fighting. Think, okay, what emotion are they bringing to the scene? What do they know about the other person? Do they know that much? Does one person maybe have a slightly weaker fighting style, or maybe not as experienced, but they know something about the other character that's going to affect them? Maybe in this fight scene, I'm never going to have them engage in maybe the most strategic ways. I'm not going to have them use like really good moves, but I'll have them, they'll be more talkative, right? They'll be more like trying to get through to the other character and make them feel emotional and weaker and not maybe. And in the Tamberlane sequence, they're not fighting in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
But we carried this idea that, okay, we want them to end up in the river. We want Tamberlane to be in the river, and supposedly Jonas. We'll have Jonas go in the river. Because Jonas is, Hera is too aggressive a character to be someone who I think is like the one who I think needs help in my mind. Not the Kira is, I don't think Kerr and Jonas have a protective air around Kira. Kerr is instigating it. It can't be him. Jonas is the one. The other two have this degree of protectiveness for Jonas, and also Jonas is by far the most innocent. By far of the three of them, Jonas has done the least bullying, and it comes from the best place. So we had this idea that was what's going to happen. And then we said, okay, why is Tamberlane upset? Why is she fighting? She can't just come into the woods and be mad because Piper got hurt. That's not enough. That's not a good enough reason. Because people have gotten hurt all the time. The reason, because kids scrape their knees, kids hurt their feet, they're kids. But she's mad because of the injustice of it and the fact that she's like, it's a philosophical thing for her. It's like, you have to say you're sorry. You have to acknowledge that you did the wrong thing, and Kerr just won't. And there's this block, and Kerr sees Tamberlane as someone who has never really been through anything.
Has never felt any hardship.
Like, oh, you were found in the woods as a baby with barely a scratch on you. You're taken in and you're treated like the princess of this town forever. And yes, we know that there are people who reject Tamberlane, like that crow in Volume 3. But Kerr, like any opponent in a fight, Kerr doesn't know what everything Tamberlane experienced, only what his reflection of her is.
Exactly.
He sees her as someone who has never suffered before. So in that moment, when she's angry, he is loving that. He is loving that she is crying. He's loving that she is experiencing insecurity. And he exploits that, and you see that she can't fight him. For whatever reason, she literally cannot lay a hand on him. And she's frozen and she's shaking. And you see that Kira and Jonas, who aren't involved in this fight on such a personal level, they break first. And if this had been a physical fight, it would have been like they would have been the ones to maybe lower their fists and be like, "Nah, we're not hitting this person anymore."
Yeah.
But Kerr is like Luke Skywalker. He's just slashing that lightsaber. He doesn't care who it hurts. He doesn't care what it does. He doesn't even care if what he's saying is true. He just wants to hurt her. And that, I think, is what kind of clicked the scene into place. Was like, okay, we had to stop thinking about it from Tamberlane's perspective for a second and think about it. Why is the bad guy right?
Yeah.
Even if he's not, right? Even if he's not actually right. Why is he right? So when you have a
Luker,
fight scene,
Luker just said Jonas is kind of a rude Ralsei.
honestly, I can sort of associate. So, and that was part of why, like, we had Jonas go down to the river and try to help Tamberlane, because, to me, Jonas had to make a sacrifice that led to that moment for it to be an active. You want your characters as much as possible to be an active participant in the scene.
Yeah.
It's not really interesting when bad things happen to a character for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, if Jonas just
if
flipped,
Jonas had just like stayed up there and was like, "Oh, that sucks," and then then the thing crumbled underneath him and he fell, that would have been really lame.
yeah, and so if you have a main, I think the lessons I would say is, if you have a main character, let me first off just talk to this guy. I want to get some movement going here. Hey, I'm sorry, I need a moment. I don't feel like talking right now. Cool. I mean, great. I mean, I don't have to worry about talking to these guys. Okay, so hello, welcome. Let's say
Hey,
you
Temrin.
have a, okay, let's say you have, hello, Beck. Hello, Temrin. Yeah, when you have a fight scene, right?
Real fast. I hate to
Yeah.
break you off, but Scott has it totally right. Jonas is rude Ralsei, Kira just Susie, and Kerr is a misguided Chris. Also, Lester, thank you for following.
100% true. Also, I'm just causing casual chaos in this game. I just knocked over a board game while we were talking. That's something very funny. Yeah, they are very fully aren't they? So, oh man, B12. So next time you do a fight scene, here is the main problem that I think 99% of people run into in a fight scene, and I also will present the way 99% of them solve it. The way that you have, like, main character fights main antagonist, and you think, wow, I can't kill the antagonist, and I certainly can't kill the main character. How do I create stakes? And 99.9% of writers go, the equivalent of a damsel in distress. What is a separate character that can be engaged in this? And that can be a very good, albeit, maybe avoiding the damsel part and avoiding making like the woman like, oh, help me, or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But having a character who represents, it doesn't literally have to be a character. Like, in our case, we went with Jonas because that made sense. There wasn't like some other thing it could be. There were people and they didn't have anything on them they could lose. There was something otherwise that would make sense. But when you have what you need to do is make sure that if there's a protagonist and antagonist, the actual stake of the fight should not be their death.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
And death is really not that exciting.
Yeah, it isn't. It's the most like, people are immediately like, is Tamberlane gonna die? And I'm like, what a boring thing killing Tamberlane off would be. Like, I understand, like, it's bold to kill your main character off, or whatever, but like,
spoilers, you just told people.
Oh yeah, spoiler: Tamberlane's not gonna brutally die in this comic named Tamberlane.
Wow,
I'm
I
sorry,
can't
I really
believe you betrayed me like that.
I betrayed your trust. You were telling me we have to make sure everyone really believes that this comic is called Tamberlane, and then one time one dies, it just changes to like Treehollow. That's kind of bold. That's kind of bold.
That is super bold.
No, we would never do that. So like yeah, that's my main advice I would give as someone who hasn't written that many fight scenes, but I've watched a lot of movies, I've read a lot of books, and I've read a lot of comics, and I try to pay attention because fight scenes were something I struggled with when I was writing before, and like my old stories, I would always like, how do I write this fight scene? I don't know combat. Turns out, I mean, yeah, you can research it, and that's good to do, especially with characters that are supposed to be experienced in it. But you don't have to be. If your characters are just figuring this out, then what's going to carry the fight in their eyes? It's going to be what they're feeling.
Yeah.
The whole reason most experienced fighters in the story, the advice they'll give is going to be something like, you must move past what you're feeling and just do what needs to be done, right? It's kind of like the way like these wise fighters and these things are like, you have to control yourself because the character's like, I just want to fight, and it's like, you're going to lose. So while it is true that losing that, like being able to overcome their emotion is probably the best way to beat the fight, it's not the most interesting if your character becomes super stoic immediately.
Yeah.
They have to earn that.
Yeah.
So, and I think I can tie into the art too. When we were writing the scene, like, obviously the way the character's expressions, the way you're posing, if you want a character to seem weak, shoot them from above. If you want a character to seem strong, shoot them from below. If you want a character to seem alone, shoot them from far away.
I would like to point out that what you're talking about here is camera shooting and not bullet shooting.
Yes.
You want him to was like,
them with a gun.
You want him to seem weak? Shoot him from above. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, that's fair. No one ever looks up. And brief looking over at the chat here. First of all, hey Leighton, nice to see you. And Cat Mischief and Arting is going great. And Title says, what would you say the main difference between having a protagonist of a similar style or level of morality fighting a villain/antagonist that can be summed up as purely sociopathic or irredeemable, versus one that could be redeemed, or is in a similar vein to how Kerr would be? So the main difference between having a redeemable and an irredeemable villain in a fight.
I think that, and this is not to say it can't be done, and I'm not trying to say that anyone should write it. I never would want to seem like I'm the authority on how people should write stories. But I definitely always think it's lame when a redeemable character is just killed off. When they're like, this character could be interesting. I just always think it's more interesting for a character to have to explore those things. The consequences are more interesting.
Yeah.
And just like, and now they're dead. As for an irredeemable character, that irredeemable character needs to win as much as possible.
Yeah, you know what? I would agree.
You need to make sure that your irredeemable character wins literally constantly. And that sounds counterintuitive because it sounds like an awful, but readers love it. What do readers love more than an absolutely terrible villain who keeps winning? And if a villain is like, I am Lord Evil and I will destroy all the world, and then they die or they lose, you're like, well, that's not interesting. If every time a protagonist fails, we root for them more. Every time an antagonist wins, we're scared of them more. And you want to be scared of the villain and rooting for the good guy. If the villain is a redeemable character, I just say look at Zuko. Just look at Zuko. Watch Zuko 100 million times in a row, and you'll just know how to do a really good redeemed villain.
Just
watch Zuko. Again, and remember that not every character can be redeemed. Yes, Alex. Unfortunately, we will be sniping Tamberlane, and she'll walk out of the clinic immediately like, well, sorry guys, the war started. So also here's the thing. Contrary to what My Little Pony says, not every villain can or should be redeemed.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person just shouldn't. This isn't redeemable. I'm not talking about real life. The stories aren't real life, and I think there are some people in real life who also are irredeemable. Yeah. But whatever the case, when you're writing a story, you're not trying to make it a literal truth. You're trying to talk about truth through a story. So you can have your character be really, really bad. And yes, sometimes, like a good example, Steven Universe. I would agree with most people whose criticism of the diamonds in Steven Universe that they aren't redeemable characters, really. At least White Diamond isn't. But the show was canceled and they had to be like, okay, let's wrap this up pretty quick. They had to plan for many more seasons, but they got canceled. They had to do what they had to do, and it's just a reflection of what happened. They can't blame themselves for that. But
Yeah.
if you're writing that show and you've got as many seasons as you want, you cannot create a fascist allegory and then be like, actually, they were just sad. You can't do that, right? So think about, is my character redeemable? The answer is yes. Ask how. But don't let them immediately turn. Don't make it so that all they need is to talk about friendship. Because think about, there's a phrase I hear a lot that I like, which is, what's the phrase?
Good question. I don't know.
Tell me the phrase, Caitlin. Is you can't reason a person out of a belief that they didn't reason themselves into.
Mm-hmm.
Of a character in your story, think about why they believe what they believe. If the character came to their belief through a really reasonable thing, like for instance, the Black Panther villain, like I kind of get why he feels that way. That's a character that's redeemable. He came to his belief through honestly a really real place, and he just it's painful. But if a character's like has a belief, and you're like, that is just not a reasonable thing. That character's probably not someone you can just change their mind with a hand holding and a friendship talk. They probably can't.
Yeah.
Because you can't reason them out of it. Oh, you just gotta be nice. Why would they be nice? How many times have people actually changed their mind because someone told them, stop being mean? Kerr couldn't... There was no way in this scene that Kerr could ever forgive Tamberlane.
Yeah.
There was no way that Tamberlane could just let go of the situation. And Jonas and Kira, while they could say they don't want to get uncomfortable with the fight, they're not going to stop it. When have they ever proved themselves to be characters who would immediately stop the fight?
Yeah.
They didn't stop when Kerr was fighting Piper. They're the epitome of bystander bullies, right? They're there to be bullies when it's fun, but as soon as it's not fun anymore, they just kind of watch. And Kerr is someone who I would argue is a redeemable character. His flaws come from a very real place of pain. We have a question from Wolf. What you guys think? Oh, our question. What you guys think about David Xanatos and the Xanatos Gambit that he was a source for?
I honestly don't know enough about gargoyles to say.
But that, I will say, the concept of David Xanatos was a villain until his wife was in danger. That's an interesting thing, because obviously, while this topic today isn't villains, it is very important to fights to understand antagonists. This goes back to a very fun, I guess it'd be a trope. I don't know what the term for the trope is, but when you have a villain and a good guy who team up temporarily for a common cause, it's fun.
Yeah. That is fun. Yeah.
That is fun. They have a couple of that with Zuko for sure. I would say that David Xanatos is probably a pretty selfish person, from what I gather, but that doesn't mean that what he feels for his wife isn't real. You can feel pity for this person for doing the right thing because he's afraid for someone. But like, this is a real thing people do in real life, right? People will do the right thing, but only when it personally affects them in some way. And that's not a good person. So that's a character who, and I think it's a very fascinating way to write a character. So, yeah. Oh, there's plenty of times where audiences are like, I want this character to be redeemed. The character isn't redeemed in the story. And that's really, it depends on the writer. The writers determine what they think works. That's fine, right? But then the audience can also interpret it the way they want to. If an audience thinks a character is redeemable and the writer doesn't, that's fine. That's just different opinions. And sometimes a person
can
say,
your opinion, man.
Yeah, there's definitely some times where you'll have a person who, believes a character should be redeemable, and you look at the character like, yeah, no. Don't redeem that character. A toxic character. Yeah. For example, Purple Guy in FNAF is not a redeemable character. You shouldn't be like, oh, Purple Guy's so fun. No, Purple Guy's a terrible serial-killing, child-murdering monster. There's no redeemable trace in this person. And you didn't see the main games being like, actually, Purple Guy was cool. They were always like, no, he's evil. It was really the fan base who had to romanticize, and I get it. Fan bases love to romanticize characters because it kind of comes from that I can fix him thing, right?
Yeah. So and it's just fun to do that, right?
Yes. So I would argue, here's a fun little thought. Maybe a protagonist should never win a fight. What I mean by that is they might win the fight, literally. They might win, but at what cost? Luke wins the fight against Darth Vader, but he loses his father in the process. Zuko beats Azula in the fight, but now he's lost a family member. Like, if the good guy's like, I beat you, and the bad guy's like, oh no, and the good guy's like, I got everything I ever wanted. Well, that's boring.
if Tamberlane had won, quote unquote, that fight, she would have done a violence, and
Yeah.
that would not have gone well for her.
So that's my theory, that maybe when you're writing a fight, a character doesn't have to lose a fight by literally losing the fight physically, but they have to sacrifice something in every fight, or the fight had no stakes.
I like that.
My head canon for writing. What do I have to do here? I don't quite.
You can always, I think it's down on the D-pad to have what's his bucket tell you.
Send to. Oh, I went down. I am the smartest cat. Listen to me go.
Thank you, Title Belt. Also, Gavin, nice to see you. Gavin says, I feel like Batman's idea of you can always fix them eventually was flipped on its head with the Injustice arc. I unfortunately am not familiar with that arc.
Well, I'm not familiar with that arc. I will say I always thought Batman was an idiot. It was like, the Joker, put him in. No, I'm not saying. Like, I don't believe in a death penalty, but I also don't think the real world has a literal Joker. The Joker is not reasonable. How many people have to die before the Batman will just stop letting the Joker get away?
Yeah.
I've never thought that a main character whose thing is simply the phrase "Thou shalt not kill" is particularly interesting. It can be like Steven Universe, a character who doesn't want to do violent actions, and that's cool. But what's interesting is that he eventually has to realize that sometimes you do. The point of it isn't that he's right. The point is that it's not that it's a weakness. The point is that it is a strength of character and also an exploitative weakness that he has. Both.
Yeah.
When he wins the fight against some of the bad guys by being violent, he loses the philosophical fight that he is trying to make with himself. And that's why you can never win a fight. Because if you win a fight and you were proven right and the bad guy's gone and you got everything you wanted, it's a boring story.
Yeah.
So maybe when you enter a fight, the questions you should ask are, what are they really fighting about? Because the swords are a metaphor. What are they really fighting about? And whatever happens, what is the protagonist afraid to lose that isn't his life? His or her, its life. And if they don't lose if they win the physical fight, what did they lose? What cost was there?
Yeah. I like that.
All right, we made it to Midtown, I think. Let's go.
Let's go.
Midtown. We're just in Midtown Atlanta. I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, I've been here. Let's see. Ooh, the visuals in this game are lovely.
Aren't they?
Absolutely wonderful. So here's the question. What is a fight scene that you, the audience, but the reason the Joker keeps escaping is because the Joker's a fun villain to have, so he's got to let him get away again. They put him in Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum has like one guard with a blindfold on for the security. I'm curious, what are fight scenes that you all remember be impacting you as a viewer or a reader or a listener, right? Like, what was a fight scene that you never forgot? I've heard of the Trope Talk series. I actually haven't watched it, but I've heard of it. It's on my list.
Same.
Tropes are one of those things that I think are. I mean, it's not like anyone really disagrees. Tropes are not inherently bad. Tropes are useful. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's so cool.
You know, okay, here's an action scene that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
Although maybe it's more from production value than from any particular stakes, which was the hallway fight in Daredevil, the Netflix show. Oh my god, that was so beautifully done. Like, it is a one unbroken shot down a hallway as Daredevil is like just busting into rooms and like throwing people into the hallway and like beating the shit out of them and then like moving on to the next guy, and it is absolutely gorgeously choreographed and really, really great. Something about that really stuck with me. But I could not for the life of you tell you why he was fighting. Only that it looked cool.
I believe he was saving a child.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah.
And I remember the reason that scene stuck with me really heavily was he got the shit beat out of him. That's what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was literally constantly. We were just watching him barely hanging on at all.
Yeah.
He was not doing well. He wasn't like winning this fight. He only won out of sheer force of will, not out of sheer force of
Yeah.
like he's able, but they were able too, and he really just kept getting back up again.
Yeah.
Um, but that couldn't have been the last fight in the series either because he won.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he lost something. I mean, in that case, I think what he lost is that he like got the shit beat out of him. I think that he just like I think he had to recover for like a month after. I remember like, he was like in his room like all bloodied up, and then like everything went downhill after that in his actual personal life. If I remember correctly. Okay, so I'm gonna go down a list of some people's favorites here. Anakin versus Obi-Wan is, in my opinion, a marvelous fight scene. That the only area that I wasn't thrilled about it was that sometimes it felt like they got distracted by the visuals from the story. Sometimes there were times where it was like you're doing this really really cool scene and I'm really engaged with it, but sometimes like there are moments where it's like they're just swinging their lightsabers rapidly at each other. And I understand the visual point is that they are both so good. I get that, and it's a very cool fight, but I think we needed more moments. I mean, part of it is really they had the moments where they had dialogue, and the dialogue just wasn't very good because George Lucas isn't very good at writing dialogue. Just his whole, like, for example, when he says, "If you're not with me, then you are my enemy," I'm like, that could have been a really cool moment, but that is the worst line I've ever heard. The choreography was brilliant because the choreographist on those movies was great. Let's see, Zuko Azula's last. Yep, absolutely beautiful fight scene. Just it's just them, and it has some similarities to the Anakin Obi-Wan one, right? They're blasting each other with the maximum amount of their ability. But what I think I loved about Zuko Azula's fight, and what I really liked about the ending of the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight, was both of them ended with they were both just like complete emotional wrecks.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is screaming to Anakin, and he has tears on his face, and Anakin's screaming, "You were meant to tell to save them, not destroy." And it's like, "Hey, yeah, I love you, Anakin." Like cheesy, maybe a little bit, but like it earned it.
Yeah.
You could earn that moment of like hamminess when like it's, but and Zuko and Azula by the end, Azula is just blasting not everywhere for no reason.
Yeah.
Perfect example of Azula started the fight in control and she lost emotional control, and by losing emotional control, she lost the fight.
Yeah.
Let's see. I haven't seen Raising Arizona, though I hear it is amazing. And
Raising
I probably
Arizona is fantastic. It's been
not talking about that fight.
Over probably a decade at least since I last saw it, but it's great. And I vaguely remember the diaper run car chase. And Jackie Chan, always great.
Jackie Chan fights are strong because they exude the underdog improvisational aspects of the fight. He is panicking. He never knows what he's going to do. He just does it. And yes, it almost always works out for him, but it doesn't always. Sometimes he slips and falls. Sometimes his moves fail, and that's what kind of adds the fun. Like, he's kind of an underdog character, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, imagine if he literally nailed it every time.
Yeah.
Let's see. What would be the first thing you work on in a story? The characters are building the world. Perfect question. Okay. I would say it depends a lot on genre, but I think that both simultaneously is very wise, because if you write the world without a sense for the story, you then are having to retrofit a story around a world that wasn't designed for it. And if you write a story without a world, you're populating these characters in a void. I think that it's important for the world you write to be reflective of the themes that you're looking to tell, and that the story you're looking to tell is best served by the world that you're creating. So when I wrote Mothorial, I very much was like creating aspects of the world. There are aspects of the world that I wrote in a vacuum. Like, here's the political system of the world. I never use it.
Yeah.
I don't use any of the crap that I wrote in Arkham. Caitlin and I, when we talked about Abroad, because she had a very strong sense of what Abroad already was. She kind of already came up with it. But there were some aspects of like what Silver Sage was and the history of this world that hadn't been fully defined.
Yeah, Ari was like, hey, is there like a government in Silver Sage? And I'm like, who cares? It's not part of the story. And he's like, Caitlin, we need to talk about the government. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about the government.
And by talking about this map is brilliant, by the way. I'm not even like playing the game, I'm just exploring. Yeah, like so we talked about chapter 6 and 7 and 8 and 9, and while talking through these chapters, we were simultaneously having to build the world around the story. Like, okay, where would this happen? We want this to happen to this character. What would that mean? Where would that be? Oh, that's cool. So why would that place be like that? What's the history of that place that would make it become like that? And you kind of just the world gets created, naturally because you're having to answer your own questions.
Yeah, you sculpt it. It's like sculpting or wood carving, where you kind of just like you're cutting away the pieces that don't work, and you're putting on extra pieces that like, oh, this could use something here, and you add a little more clay, and then you're like, oh, that doesn't quite fit, but if I just take away this little bit here, then and so on. It's not really a straightforward process. It's really something that you just kind of like keep chipping away at over time.
That's actually a brilliant.
Hey, Leighton. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for subscribing
And that is actually a
or
brilliant
resubbing.
metaphor too, I would say. In that, let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci carving the statue of David. Did Leonardo da Vinci stand there in front of a marble stone and go, "I'm
I,
just gonna start hacking at this thing"?
I think that was Michelangelo, wasn't it?
No, Michelangelo. Leonardo da Vinci. I don't know why I said Leonardo da Vinci. I'm a cat right now. I'm gonna
You
meow.
know what? Listen, all the things that's been going on in my head, you're welcome to just, you know what?
They're all
It's Da Vinci now.
they're all turtles to me. Okay. Yeah. Basically, when Michelangelo was carving this statue, he had to have a sense of what he was trying to do with the marble, but he also had to work with what the marble gave him.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
when you're carving a thing, you have to work with the marble, and it is somewhat of an improvisational process, but you also have to kind of know what you're even trying to do in the first place. Creating a world is improvisational, but you have to have a sense for what you're trying to do thematically, or else it's completely random.
yeah.
Like, the world you create should not be arbitrary. I'm not a Renaissance fan. I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
Mog
Fine.
Dog, I would say that the reason we're answering this way is because building a world, building characters, and building the plot are all just so inextricably intertwined that there's no way to talk about one without talking about the others.
And it's worth noting, too, that the way that we just answered that question about plot and story can absolutely and should absolutely apply to a fight scene, too.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
When you're creating a fight, you are creating the world of the fight, which is the physical actions that are taking place, and you're creating the story of the fight, what is actually happening behind the scenes. You cannot do one before the other.
Yeah.
You cannot say, okay, so this character's gonna be sad, and then they're gonna get angry, and then they're gonna cry, and then they're gonna get hurt, and then they're gonna lose. Say, okay, well, but you can't say, George swings a punch at Michael. Michael uppercuts. And you're like trying to later on put emotions on it. Most things in stories have to happen simultaneously because one thing influences the other. The story you're trying to tell influences the moves they do, and how those moves take place influences the emotions the characters feel. So I would say it actually is a very, very similar philosophy to world and character. You're building the world of the fight and the story of the fight at the same time. Um, Title belt. Sorry, I'll go in order. Stickler says there was a fight in Octopath Traveler toward the end of Primose's story, which is super cool. I've always wanted to play Octopath Traveler. It's gorgeous.
I need to play that.
Yes. Yeah. When a fight scene is good, you need to process what's happening emotionally, and the fight is almost like a bonus, and it's almost like the fight is. I just had I think a pretty good analogy for what a fight scene is.
Yeah.
Who here likes musical theater?
I do.
In music, if they can't talk, they sing. If it's too much for talking, they sing, and if it's too much for singing, they dance.
Yeah.
In a fight, if it's too much for talking, they shout. If it's too much for shouting, they attack.
Yeah, yeah.
When you have a character just screaming incoherently and swinging their swords, you know you're at the end of that fight, right?
Yeah.
Musical theater in some ways is kind of similar to a fight scene. You start by talking and working it out, and then you get into the emotional expression, and then you get to the fighting where you're reflecting the emotions, and then the emotions are the sword is your screaming. You're just like,
Yeah.
think about the way musical theater does it, and I think that's a good way to. So Octopath Traveler, yeah, exactly. Like when you get to the point where the story is so powerful, it's overwhelming. It's really beautifully engaging. Um, Tunnel says will be the final fight in the last mission of ZCOM EU, where you fight the Ethereals and their leader. It's a fight between six of your best soldiers and the leader of their alien invasion, setting in the leader's voice lines. And see, what do you remember? You remember where, like, what this place was and what they were saying. You don't remember every punch. But the punches have to happen or there wasn't a fight, right? That's what's really interesting to me is that you often don't remember the exact moves of the fight. Like when I think of Princess Bride, I remember the phrase, "I'm left-handed," and he throws the sword.
Right, right. Also,
Oh my
real
god.
quick, I'm gonna do another giveaway for another sketch.
Marvelous.
Because it is the 4 o'clock mark. So, giveaway start. Use exclamation point fight to enter in. Make sure you have a link to the reference of a character you want me to draw. It's a 5-minute doodle. Join the thing. Okay.
Yes. Also, Wolf, absolutely. Hamilton, beautiful example of just the rule of the musical rule of thirds, where dances don't happen that often. In that one, it's almost more like I don't know. Yeah, there is dancing. They actually incorporate dancing and fighting together during the battle sequence in the end of Act 1, I believe. Great example. Yeah, great example. Let me scroll up. I've missed some of the chat. Let me scroll up a little bit. The Death Battle series has, in my opinion, some of the best fight scenes ever made. Even fights are more like homages to certain characters instead of being narratively important. So when you say they're homages to certain characters, I would say there is a narrative point to that, right? Like the fight is giving a visual representation of a character. I haven't seen this series yet, but I would say character and plot to me are so intertwined that if you're explaining the characters, you're explaining the plot, right? At least in my opinion. Unless you're not.
Also, congrats, Luker.
Congratulations.
Drop
and
in the chat.
Title Belt mentions the fall of Cadia from Warhammer, mostly for the ramifications and impact it had on the setting as a whole. Exactly. If a fight scene happens in a vacuum and nothing changes as a result, it's not an important fight scene and didn't need to happen. And that's not bad. That's not always bad. Avatar has its fair share of fight scenes that don't necessarily change everything. They're just because the show is, in some ways, it's a serial story, right? It's a serial, but it's also a story of the week, and that's fine. But in a more engaged serial story, generally, not every fight has to change the world, but it has to change something. Even if it's one character that changes, that's enough. Keeper Rick says, it's kind of the reason I wrote a framing device in my webcomic. It helps me reintroduce world building in an organic way, much more organic than a mother writing her life story to her child. And that was in reference to what Beck had said, and yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I've been writing a story right now where I'm trying to think about, I'm trying to write found footage falls into this all the time, where you're trying to explain why they're holding the camera and why the story is being told, and it's so difficult. It's so brutal. That actually can tie into fight scenes too, in that when you're having a fight in a scene, another question to ask is, does the main character, like, okay, you're Link, right? You walk into the boss room and the door behind you mysteriously closes ominously, and then the spider monster appears and you fight him and then you can get away. That's a literal take on you have to fight this fight. You don't have to make the reason a character must fight this fight a physical barrier or a survival necessity. If you want to make your fight interesting, always be willing to ask yourself if there's other ways you can do things. Is there another reason why this character will not leave this fight? Is there a reason why he's fighting that isn't just, you killed my dad, or whatever? Is the result of the fight not that one obviously beats the other? Is what they win the fight or something more interesting? Is what they lose the fight or something more interesting? So, I think when you're writing these fight scenes, you can absolutely go onto tropes, but always ask, and that's fine, but always ask yourself if you can have another less obvious reason for any given part of a fight. Because that'll probably engage the audience more. Like, no one here has said, I like this fight because this character killed this character's dad, and that was cool. It's most like, it's obvious, right? It's not that it's bad, but like, I mean, my name is Inigo Montoya, right? Like, you killed my father, prepare to die. Yeah. But that's also meant to be the most stereotypical and like the most tropey hero guy ever. It's kind of the point. But they wanted to find the most obvious thing that this character hated about this guy, and it's a six-fingered man killed my father. Okay, cool. But yeah, what is your six-fingered man? What is your father? Why is Inigo Montoya gonna kill this guy? And is it, can you pick more interesting reasons for things?
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to go through here. Ari's not a Beyonce fan. Uh, Beyonce's alright. Beyonce's cool. It's got some tunes. Um, let's see. I'm trying to see what. Oh, Caitlin, you were asked if that CozyCon banner going to be in a comic or an art book of some sort.
Probably not. It's just a cute little thing. Um, but I can, I mean, there's a desktop version of it, available on the Foxglove Comics server in the Creative Works channel.
Sticklord, I absolutely need to see that play. Please let me know what that play is called, because that sounds amazing. Stick was mentioning that there was a play where the characters had these emotional topics that they get into, and they, at the point when they can no longer emotionally talk about it, they instead talk about math concepts because they're like a bunch of math students, but they're really talking about bigger topics. That's
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
amazing. I want to see that too.
That sounds really neat. Like, um, so I'm curious, Caitlin, if you have any other Man, you were taking a long time to arrest this guy, man. You're just standing there. I know, by the way, that I'm not moving the story forward. I want to explore the dialogue in this scene, but I also really want to engage with you guys at this point. So I'm like, I'll next time I'll start off maybe and do like maybe we can pick a topic that's more art themed, and I can like talk to a bunch of these guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
Sounds
this is a
good.
very engaged topic, and I don't want to like miss all the story. Also, I mean, this setting is ridiculously cool. How's this game an indie game? So, Caitlin, as a visual storyteller, you are both, but you, way more than I am able to do visual storytelling. When you wrote this fight,
hmm
what did you find surprising about it? What did you find difficult? What did you find easier or different than you expected?
I'm assuming you mean the river, the fight before the river.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Let's see.
I
It's
will say that it was very annoying to know, as always happens with webcomics, that people are going to be like, man, and I don't blame them. This fight is taking forever because it's like
right.
6 weeks, but it's actually 6 pages, which is totally reasonable. Keep in mind that pacing in webcomics is brutal.
Yes, it is absolutely brutal. It's oh god, you always have to balance between uh hold on, I'm focusing on this.
My own ginger cat just jumped in my lap. This game is now 4 dimensional, and as I'm down in the game, my cat, hello, Bambi. You want to watch me cosplay as you? So you were saying?
So yeah, so webcomics, like you are ultimately pacing for it to be read in one go, but there's a
Dick.
oh yes, I loved doing that, just constantly tripping the policeman. Um, anyway, yeah, you're ultimately pacing for when it's read in one go, either as somebody catching up or in a printed volume. However, you always have to pay attention as well to how long it's going to take in the week to week, because it can really just murder your poor readers. Like there was I think it was chapter 5 might have been where I was like, all right, cool, I'm really happy with this, and you were like, okay, I need you to know, like, this is going to mean that we are on the same night for another 52 weeks. Are you okay with that? And I was like, oh god, no. And I had to go back and rewrite.
Yeah, it's kind of like how someone mentioned the other day, oh my god, like, we started the Valley Bluffs field trip in 2020.
Yeah, right?
Like, so yeah, and that, like, it's why I always find action movies impressive when they do really well with pacing. Mad Max, Fury Road, perfect example of an action movie that really just sticks to the action, but manages to tell a very emotional story. If you want to watch a movie that just nails how to use action to portray emotion and character arcs, just watch Mad Max Fury Road. It barely say
God,
anything
so
in that
true.
movie. And the world building is so natural too. Like they use world building very naturally and very subtly, and they give you all these character arcs with like The main character, I think Max has like 5 words. Like, and honestly, Max is by far the least interesting character in that movie. There's so many really fascinating characters. Furiosa is amazing. I want to flip the
Let's.
police officer again. All I want to do is flip the cops over and over again.
All right. So now that I am done finishing that sketch, it'll be a lot easier for me to talk about the things that I found surprising. So
Wait, too sick.
the let me think. It was really difficult to get across the things I wanted to portray. Like there are some things that showed up in that sequence where I basically had to be okay with good enough, and I always have to be okay with good enough because that's just how creation is, right? But like the fisheye lens panel is definitely not quite what I wanted, but you know what? It's good enough, and it definitely provided the opportunity for me to try my hand at new things that I don't normally get to do because I'm not in the action oriented stuff. Um, it is surprisingly difficult to show some of those actions in a still format like comics. Like
Yeah,
the
when I first started running Mothorial, the amount of times I wrote the phrase "he or she nods,"
yeah, yeah,
and then went, "Oh wait, that's not fun."
right? Like, oh, fuck. Oh. Like the having to show and portray that Tamberlane was attempting to push Kerr, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't actually put the force of the push behind it. And like I think I did okay portraying that. I think it doesn't
I think
quite
it came out great. I think it came out really good.
I don't know if it is as instantly clear as I want it to be, but you know what? It's good enough. um some other things are it is surprisingly hard to draw somebody crawling down a cliffside, like specifically crawling over the lip of it and going downwards. Uh, when Jonas is coming down to Tamberlane, that one was really a hard panel that I kept having to redo over and over. Because showing that kind of action is you've got so much that you've got to juggle with that. And Milo, thank you for following. Um,
Thank you, thank you.
God, what else? It's been a while since it's been a while since I've done that scene. I'm trying to remember like.
For you all, when we eventually have another fight scene in Tamberlane, because it'll happen, I'll really try to make a conscious effort to like document what we're talking about on that. 'Cause I really want to kind of think about our process. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
We're doing that in general more. We're trying to kind of document the process more. One thing I do want to say is Luker, just mentioning Titanic sinking in Titanic. Yeah, the Titanic sinking scene in that movie it's the greatest action sequence in that film. I love Titanic to death. I've seen it like 100 times. And the worst action sequence in Titanic is when the guy's shooting the gun. When there's an actual fight sequence, no one cares. Who cares about this guy shooting a stupid gun? The ship is sinking. Like, if you ever want to watch a movie that just is like just a masterclass in action without fighting, Titanic is so good.
Actually, speaking of action and also kind of spiraling off of Stick's topic, a little bit, is there's a movie called Noises Off.
Before
And
you must look at my screen. Hey guys, welcome to my stream. Tonight we're gonna be playing Hot. I'm vlogging here from down in Midtown. Let's go trip a cop.
So Noises Off is a story, a movie about a play troupe who are putting on a performance, but they are having. I think it follows through some rehearsals and then the actual play, if I recall. It's been a while, but but they're having some interpersonal issues, but they can't work them out because the entire play is told essentially from backstage slash in the audience, and so they can't actually like talk to each other there, so that you can see their emotion and how they're feeling and how it's coming out in their acting in the play. And it is so funny and so well done and so recognizable if you've done theater.
Oh yeah.
And that is a great example of action telling a story.
Heck yeah.
And I highly recommend watching Noises Off if you have not already. It is a romp.
I didn't check that out. I've never ever heard of that before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's great. Um, let's see. I should probably move this over so I can see. Okay, cool. Just making sure I don't have any DMs anywhere. Okay. What else did I learn?
What will it be today, little sir?
Little sir. I love that.
That was the most I've ever felt connected to this character. Just being called a little sir. That's me. Speaking of which, let me just knock some crap off the table.
Yeah, there you go. Just knock it off. Ta-da! Do.
Can I knock the bonsai tree off, please? I want to be a chaos demon. I want to
I
destroy
think,
something. I want to destroy something beautiful today.
Excuse me. Heard a lot of the little challenges for tomorrow.
Also, Keeper, I 100% know what you're talking about, and I truly, truly wish I didn't.
Yeah. I was gonna say, coming on, like, branching off of that, Michael Bay is often, let's say, derided for his action, because, I see what you're talking about, Scott. Because there aren't enough emotional stakes in it, I think. A lot of times, if I recall, like, I could be speaking out my ass. It's been a while since I've seen a Michael Bay movie, but that didn't
The only one
feel
I've
like
ever
it was
seen
tied
ever
to
was the
emotions.
first. Yeah, the first one, only one I've ever seen was the first Transformers movie. It was fine, I guess.
Let's see.
Yeah, a lot of his fights are rule of cool without any emotion behind it, and that's not
Yeah.
a great move.
Yeah. How would you make a fight scene between two groups or people who are such varying power levels, such as spacefaring groups, or person fighting a group on a technological level similar to that of Treehollow or Mothorial?
So you're saying, like, if a sci-fi alien came down with a UFO and was like, we're gonna blast Treehollow away, and I was like, oh no, we got stick! How do you make that fight interesting? That is the most interesting kind of fight. Impossible odds, baby. You better make sure the protagonists are the ones with the sticks. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's also it becomes a fun exercise in figuring out how you can place obstacles in the way of the superior people to make it so that they are on, if not even ground, at least like they're not going to be instantly curb stomped.
yeah.
Unless that's the point, in which case, by all means, go nuts. Um,
Yeah. I mean, you can use stories like that as a way to, like, here's the thing. You can use character coming down and murdering, like, a group who's not remotely ready to fight as a way to show the power of the powerful one. But I'll be honest, like, sometimes it feels like that can translate to, like, actual world history in a way that kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily the best way to. I think usually when you have an insurmountable odds, you just want the protagonist versus the antagonist. And the antagonists are way above. So if you had like the antagonist show up and be like, "Hey, we're gonna, like, UFOs, we're gonna come take on Treehollow," and you're like, "Oh my gosh, how are they ever gonna get away? Can't get away from this? How are they gonna beat this?" That's gonna be the burdens on the writer to figure that one out. But that could be really engaging. And the answer is they have to. I don't know who has seen Signs. I don't know if anyone cares if I spoil the twist of Signs.
You're probably fine. It's been
Okay.
a long
For
time
anyone, it's a 2002 movie. For anyone who is afraid of hearing a spoiler for a 20-year movie, take off your headset for the next 15 seconds, and I will just say in that 15 seconds. 3, 2, 1. The movie reveals that the aliens are allergic, basically, will die when in contact with Earth water. So they basically have like insurmountable odds, but they find this one exploit. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the best way, but usually if I fight with insurmountable odds, there's an exploit or a weakness at the technologically high level did not consider because it was an angle they hadn't philosophically thought of before. That's
Yeah.
usually the best way to handle a fight like that. What is something that this high powerful group would just not even consider worth thinking about that is a weakness, an exploit? Independence Day has the virus, right? With the whole virus thing where they're like, we'll take down the ship with literally a computer virus. Like, I mean, Contact, it's not a fight, but they have to use music to communicate with this group. Like, find either a common ground, or if you can find out what about the powerful group is bad. What about them represents a bad, reprehensible philosophy, and what about them having that philosophy is going to mean that they are missing something? They have a blind spot that our heroes can exploit. But yeah, before the heroes exploit them, feel free to blow up a bunch of towns first so that they really seem scary. That's fine.
Yeah.
like, I don't. If the alien comes down, we're more powerful, and it gets killed in 5 minutes, they weren't a powerful protagonist, and it's not. I mean, a powerful antagonist, and it's not interesting.
Yeah.
Um. Oh yeah, Roll the World's a classic.
And also, Galaxy Quest might be a good,
Oh,
also.
wonderful. So good.
Let's see. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Brain. Make the brain go. Say the brain things. Not gonna lie, guys. I'm gonna be, pretty dumb for the next couple of days. It's gonna be great.
That's why we're
Gonna
going to
have...
be doing a whole panel about creating your story. The
Yeah.
webcomic. I think you'll be able to pull it off pretty well. I think part of it is
Oh, yeah.
also that, like, there's only so much you can say about action sequences. I think we've done a pretty good job of filling in
Yeah.
I've only written like 3 of them. I've mostly watched a lot. A lot of my experience has come from growing up. I watched a lot of films and read a lot of books, and I've mentioned this before, but I have a philosophy that there's almost no such thing as a terrible, irredeemable story. Sometimes there is. Sometimes they're just coming from a really bad place. Oftentimes, a story that's not good, there's just a few things they needed to change to make it work.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have movies like The Room where there's just very little that's redeemable. That's not a good movie. But generally,
Oh, hi, Mark.
oh hi, Oh hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh hi, Mark. Like there's it basically, yeah. My stepdad is named Mark, so you can imagine.
Oh my god.
There are some times where a story is completely just god awful terrible. But like we'd watch a movie, my friends and I, and after the movie was over, we'd be like, okay, what we didn't like that. Instead of saying that movie sucked, move on, we'd be like, what about it didn't work? So even if you're not always writing, reading and watching and consuming and taking in, and then always taking stories in good faith. Try to engage with them
Yes.
on what you're trying to do. Don't just be like for instance, I have not really liked the Michael Bay movie I've seen, but if I watched Michael Bay movie, I would try to engage with it.
Yeah.
And then if I didn't like it, I want to be able to say why. I don't want it to say, oh, it sucked. I want to be able to say, this movie could have been good had they focused more on this and not as much on this. Or it could have been a little better. And by doing that, every time you do that, you're leveling up your own ability to write a story because you're now knowing what doesn't work. The fact that we have a recipe, right? A recipe to make cookies. Not some person didn't just sit down one day, reach into a bag and pull out a bunch of ingredients and throw them in a pot and make a cookie. They made crappy ass cookies. And eventually someone figured out how to make a perfect cookie and give you that recipe. But you cannot have that recipe if you don't understand why. I mean, you can copy a recipe blindly, but if you want to be a baker and know how to... The difference between someone who copies the recipe down and learns how to bake, and that a baker needs to understand why these things make sense.
Yeah. 100%.
Why. So, yeah, engage with stories and always ask what the author was trying to do, what the artist was intending, and see how much of what they intended worked and how much didn't, rather than writing off the whole thing. Because a lot of times you'll be surprised, and you know where I come from with this. I'm an obsessive horror fan.
Yeah.
And horror is a genre that gets a really bad rep. 90% of horror movies I've seen have a lot of good traits, and they just have a couple things that maybe didn't work if they're not good. Or there's actually a lot of really good horror movies out there. People just do not give horror the time of day. I don't know why. It's a wonderful genre. And it's a genre that, when it works, it really works. And when it doesn't work, it's often kind of fun that it didn't.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
also
yeah.
often very clear why. It's actually a great crash course in, like, why a fight scene doesn't work, why an antagonist doesn't work, why drama isn't interesting, why writing is bland. Like, you get, but when you find a horror that is effective, you're like, that made me feel something, even if that emotion was like fear or terror or worry or whatever. And that can be so. I mean, yeah, if you haven't seen horror and you can handle horror, it's a great training ground, I think.
One, Blaze of Spikes. I hope you really enjoyed Tamberlane. I'm glad you got to read it.
Yes, welcome to the
Secondly, on the
Canberra
topic,
team.
yeah, on the topic of horror, um, and really well done horror, is the game Soma. Um,
I
it
have yet to
is.
finish it. I played the first half and I loved it.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I should play that on stream.
You could play it on stream, but
Kind
it's
of,
very philosophical and very dense with information, so it may not be good for this stream.
yeah, I was doing that. I would like to at some point like do streams where we just hang out and play games, and we're not necessarily trying to.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm always about playing. Like I love horror games so much.
But yeah, Soma is really great. It was, yeah, Luker's on my wavelength. It is psychological horror and regular horror and body
And
horror.
and I have thallassophobia, so I know the game will be good for me.
Oh, good. Yes,
That is the fear of
perfect.
deep water. I have an absolutely paralyzing fear of the ocean.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Absolutely paralyzing. If I see like a video of a whale coming up from underwater, I have a visceral reaction of actual terror.
Oh, good.
It's because when I was a kid, I got pulled in a riptide,
Oh,
and
yeah,
that
yeah.
scared me for life. I will say, keep for one thing. Yes, and my Shyamalan movies haven't always been good. I will say, Sixth Sense and Signs are fantastic movies. Signs is flawed, but I adore it, and Sixth Sense is genuinely one of the best movies ever made. But yes, How the Mighty Have Fallen. Though I've heard The Visit is okay.
I also liked, fuck, the one that, it's the superhero one, Unbroken, or whatever it's called. I can't
I haven't
remember.
seen that one yet. Unbroken is one I really. The Samuel L. Jackson one. I wanted to watch that one, but look at huh? Oh my god!
This game has so much really sweet polish. I love it.
When we end the stream, I'm gonna end it by landing on this guy's lap. That's gonna be the end of
Good.
the stream. Just
Good.
so everyone's aware, it's very important that everyone knows that. Um.
I'm gonna do one more giveaway.
Oh my god! Undertale is the perfect example of how to make a fight scene emotional.
Oh, yeah!
Every fight in that movie, I was crying like a baby. That game, not movie.
Game, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um. Yeah, Undertale. The fights are all about not really the fight. In fact, the point is you don't really fight. You never swing a punch. They swing all the punches, and your inaction is an action. Perfect example of, not saying that has to be the only way to do a fight scene, but it's a great way.
Yeah, yeah. Also, starting the giveaway now, use exclamation point emotion to join the giveaway in the next 1 minute. Um, but yeah, Undertale is perfect for that. It is just a fantastic, uh, even when you are doing like the genocide route, for example, and you're systematically murdering every monster in the underground, like that is a powerful feeling that Toby instilled in the player. It
Yeah,
is
they're very brutal.
bonkers.
I literally can't do it. I will say I can't. I have not been able to do. I can't do. I'm incapable of doing the genocide route. I've heard people criticize the genocide routes. They say you have to kill so many guys. It's so boring, and I'm like, that's the point.
That is the
You
point.
have to grind because it's trying to tell you this is not a reasonable action you're taking.
Yeah.
There's no way genocide is ever reasonable. um,
Tamarin,
Congratulations,
congrats.
Cameron.
Drop your character in the chat and I will doodle him.
God, I wrote an entire album's worth of songs of Undertale that I want to finish. I just never got around to it.
Do it.
I wrote I wrote my favorite. I wrote a tree. The ones I have the most finished. I have a trio of Toriel, Asgore, Asriel, the family. Like it's like the three family songs. At some point, I wanna finish that because I really like them. Where am I? What is going on here? What is your? Ooh.
Okay, okay. When you write action scenes, what aspect would you guys say you personally struggle with the most?
I can answer that question immediately and just say the actual context of fighting because I'm not an athletic person.
The thing I struggle with the most is boiling it down to the most important things to show. Um, Let me reload this.
Really, both of us are answering visual.
I mean, yeah,
I'm writing that fight. I'm like, I know what they're saying. I know how they're feeling, but God, what the fuck? I'm like, in my case, it's literally the visual of like, what is the action they're taking. For you, it's what moment of the action is the moment that is best to show.
exactly. Because like when you're doing a comic, it's like looking through storyboards or like the frames of a camera, like a shutter. Blah, 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 you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's just so hard to pick the right moments because like it means and portrays something completely different depending on if you show before the shove, during the shove, after the shove. It's all totally different in comics. And in the same way, when you're writing actual like fiction, um, you need to have some economy of words. Otherwise, you're just going to be telling every single aspect of every single part of the punch or whatever, and you need to know what part of that is important and what needs to be portrayed.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that hooks into the emotion, like you said, knowing what emotion you're trying to portray, and also um, like what parts of that are so important, because that will help boil it down a little. But my God, it is just absolutely difficult to do that for me, and that's mostly just a practice thing. I haven't had a lot of practice with fight
Yeah.
scenes or action scenes, I guess. Well, no, I've had more. I have had plenty of practice with action scenes, just milder action. Arya says, "How do you cope having to hurt your creative children for the story's progression?" I revel in hurting
I was
my
about to say,
children.
I was about to say I revel in it. It was exact words I was gonna use.
They're
Sometimes it can be hard briefly for me. I find it hard to kill characters. I don't find it hard to hurt them. I only find it hard to kill them because then I can't tell their story anymore.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
find that what story is there if the character's not going through pain, right? And man, the victory, whatever that victory be, is so much sweeter when the character had to fight for it.
yeah. Like honestly, it's because it is a vector for growth and it is a vector for their story. And when they when I hurt them, I am not only able to show that story or show like in a very engaging, gripping way because people engage with that kind of thing, but also um, I can reach out to people who were hurt in a similar way and offer them a path forward, you know? Like seeing this character struggle with something so painful and then show them getting the help they need or recovering or learning how to deal with what they've dealt with. It's it's a very cathartic thing to do, and it's
And
also
it,
likewise
mhm.
it's very much a like here's the help I didn't get if it's something that is like that. Yeah, go ahead.
And let's be real, right? Like there are understandably different reasons a person might want to write a story, and like um I think there is this misinterpretation of what a story's like. Okay, yes, I would argue that most stories need a form of conflict, whatever conflict might mean in that case. But I mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again. The series by Becky Chambers that starts with the Wayfarers series, or the Way something, Way Travelers, I forget what it is. The first book is called The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And the series falls into a genre that is referred to as hope punk, which is basically just these characters are mostly vibing. You know when you're reading a book and you get to the scene where the characters are hanging out and talking about their personal lives, and you get a glimpse into who they are and having the most fun, and then like the action starts. It's like the part where they're sitting and talking never stops. That is the book. The book is them on the spaceship, getting to this location, interacting, trying to deal with what it means to be this diverse group of aliens and people of various races and traits, all trying to, work together on this ship, on this mission, and dealing with like differences of culture. Like their cultures are very different. Like one of them is literally one of the beings is an alien that starts off biologically as one gender, moves to the other one, and then ends up in a mid place over the course of their lives, and their pronouns shift as their life continues. And it's this really beautiful way of exploring, like, how, as a non-binary person, I love the exploration of, like, what even is pronouns and gender and how, like, a first person or an alien in this case. And the first book has some action because, it was the first one. As the series goes along, from what I've heard, it just gets more and more and more like, let's just watch these characters vibe and figure their lives out together and just like get along and be friends. And like, it's really cool. And it's interesting because like, I never really thought of a story being like that before, but it is really, really fun to read. So if you ever want to read something like that, The Long Way to a Small Greek Planet is a very good example of how to write a story that doesn't have to necessarily. It does have moments where characters get and goes through some pretty rough stuff, but it's a little, it's a lot different tonally than like what you're probably thinking of.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I don't know how I got up. I've completely lost the I've lost the track. I don't know what's happening anymore. I was on the pipes, and I don't know how I got up there, and I'm a sad, sad cat. Like that. Maybe here? Please. Please work. Yes! Okay, here we go.
Keeper, I appreciate that we took writing notes from the Darker Sesame Street episodes. Yeah, that helping people learn um how to cope with pain is one of the big reasons that I create. I mean, obviously, I also create because I am irresistibly driven by it, and you could not stop me if you tried. But
I don't think you could stop you if you tried.
no, I could not. I have tried. I've been like, okay, time to take a break, and I'm just like, no, no. But what if I created more? It is
More
it is
things
a
happen.
sickness. But
More bad things happen to more people.
right. Yeah, it's true. Gunny stops me. He's like, Caitlin, no, you're gonna hurt yourself. Don't do it. And I'm like, but it's such a good idea. And he's like, yes, you can do it next year. And I'm like, no, not next year. Do now. And then 2 days later, I'm like, thanks for stopping me. That was dumb. Anyway. But one of the major reasons that I tell stories in a public way, my biggest motivation, honestly, is to try and show stories that can help people heal or cope, because
100%.
I just want more of that. Like, and it does mean that I do tell some pretty dark stories sometimes, but I tend not to do it like
Out of a
with
sense of
this.
cruelty.
Yeah, no cruelty, no despair, no nihilism. Just like it's darkest before the dawn, and there's some just I wanna tell stories where people get better.
Perfect
I
example. Would it be meaningful and interesting when Belfry takes Tamburlaine in as a mom if Tamburlaine hadn't been lost in the woods all by herself and alone and scared? If she was just like, fine.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
yo, my name is Tamburlaine. I live at Westminster Drive in a mansion. You want to be my mom? No one would care about the story.
Right,
But
and be
because
like,
you're
oh.
going through something, you're like, oh my god. Oh my god, she's gonna help her. Oh, it's wonderful. You would not care if
Right.
she was like the best life ever. My name's Tamlin. Probably wondering how I got in the situation.
Tamerlane is absolutely a Don Bluth movie. Don Bluth movies are 100% one of my biggest inspirations for a lot of my creations. That,
Finally,
like,
way back where I started. Oh my. Okay.
nicely done.
Uh,
Yeah, that mix of, like, hope and magic and darkness, and it just all of it together to create this sort of, like, very magical feeling where you're kind of going through something that's got that like dark 80s fantasy vibe and then comes out the other side and you're like, "Ah, yeah, now it's all bright and cheery." And someone's probably still dead, but like it was worth it in the end or some stupid shit like that, you know. That's my favorite. I love it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not even gonna try to figure this out in the next 15 minutes. I'm just my
Oh,
brain is. I
that was
taught a.
loud. Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. Um
What
Thank you
happened
for
here?
rating, Xavier.
Oh, the raids audio was too loud.
Oh my god, the raid's audio was so loud. I'm gonna have to see if I can fix that. Oh, there's no raid sound in stream? Oh, okay, good. That must
Good,
mean that
good.
probably the alert sounds aren't coming through. Which is
Because it was
probably
so
okay.
loud apparently, so I'm glad you guys didn't hear it.
Yeah, right? Like, all the other alerts have been fine. Just little, like, oh, magic sparkles. And then that one was just like, oh, my ears. Yeah, maybe a good thing. I'll work on that for before next stream and also make sure it doesn't break everything.
This motherfucker just told me, yeah, you want to talk to her? She's right outside my shop. You are the only good person in this town. Thank you. Just to the right when you leave my shop.
Title,
Okay.
I am glad that you like my bewildered marmalade sticker. That I think that is that sticker is titled Dumb Bitch Energy. That's what I saved it.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I am
What
absolutely I take everything very seriously.
so you have our address in the back. The residence is just to the right when you leave my shop. Okay. Just to the right.
Gunny,
Here.
don't reveal my sticker. My sticker. Oh my god. Okay, don't reveal my secret.
The sticker. I feel your exhaustion on a level I cannot describe.
My god. Trying to work with Gunny earlier this week on CozyCon stuff, and I'm like, okay. He's like, we need to make an announcement post. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. And he's like, am I drafting it? Are you drafting it? I'm like, how about I write down kind of like the gist of what I'm thinking, and then you can like rewrite it a lot better. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. So I sit down and I start writing this stuff out, and it's just like, hi, we are at CozyCon. We good, very exciting. We do stream. Here our commission. Maybe come see us. And he's like, is this what it's like with you and Meta all the time in your story meetings? And I was like, you are not kidding. That is exactly how it is. And I'm like, here, I help. And he says, you give me bundle of sticks, I make log cabin. And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
I want to be okay. I want to give Caitlin credit here and just say that like working with her on stories is she's brilliant. I'm sure you've all seen it. No, Caitlin
Thank
is
you.
giving is Caitlin being. I mean, it's funny, but no, Caitlin is very, 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 very good at what she does. And
Hey, thank you.
like I started taking part in Tamberlane. If you want to know when my influence began to be apparent, the first suggestion I ever had in the story was maybe I think I suggested that we have them actually go on a ghost hunt because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
And like that's around the time. So everything up to the ghost hunt, I had zero input on. I want to give Caitlin honest credit. I don't want to like. I like to give credit to myself. I don't want to blur the lines and not acknowledge how much of this world building Caitlin has done. She's very good.
Thank you.
He's a joy to work with.
I also just have been working for a long time, specifically on when I have brain fog like this, on just chugging ahead and just talking and getting whatever words out that I can and trusting that the people around me can figure it out.
Oh yeah. And I think
So,
like,
yeah.
you form as a I work with Izzy too, and you form a creative language with a person, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll come in, I think we'll both be like, yeah, what are we gonna do? I mean, I guess by the end of it, we're like, okay, so that was chapter 6.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, a lot of basically that scene onward. Part of why Caitlin brought me in around that time, what she mentioned, was that there was like this. Okay, we're at a turning point. It would be nice to talk to someone about it, and we basically just from there through the through now, we planned all of chapter 5 has been written as a script. Chapter 6 is mostly plotted completely. 7, 8, and 9 are they exist in some form. Like the amount that we have been able to move forward and work as a team has been very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped about where it's going. As for I have to agree with Arya that I don't think you have enough stickers yet. You have to be able to wallpaper your entire home with them. You're not quite there yet.
That is true.
I actually
Also,
need to be able to wallpaper my house with all of your stickers.
also, thank you very much for buying the TFTs, Blaze. I will be very happy to pass all that money on to the artists and the writer. That's awesome. I love being able to support the creative community. And also, high five to Gunny for creative platform and collective.
Yeah, I'm very pleased to be being part of Fossil has been really cool, both as a creator and in the community. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I will also say, for those who are patron supporters, a new Tale from Treehollow just came out today. Be sure to check that out. It was drawn by the inimitable Nicole or Thornwolf. She did a wonderful
Yeah.
job on it.
It
Had a
is
lot of fun writing with
fantastic.
her. It was great. And that is a story that gives you some insight into some of Belfry's origins of some of what is going on with her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The Tale from Treehouse are a great chance for me and Caitlin to just like talk about things that we can sort of get to it. It's explaining things that we have to do subtext for in the comic without having to just use subtext all the time, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
nice.
yeah. And I will
But yeah,
say, because the announcements are currently being crafted and will go out sometime soon, that October's Tale from Tree Hollow is going to be drawn by Dana Simpson. And
yeah, with
extremely
bucket list for
excited.
me, a bucket list for me. Oh my god.
It's already
Uh,
looking amazing. She is knocking it out of the park. I
It actually
am
one of my
so
favorite
excited.
scripts. It's simple and I love it so much. I'm so
Yeah.
pleased with that. So yeah, please, if you're not a patron supporter, $5 or more gets you access to endless, amazing TFT content,
Woohoo!
and as well as an upcoming comic by, for those who don't know, the person who did Phoebe and Her Unicorn. That is the artist who is doing it, and it is, yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Phoebe and her unicorn, Ozzy and Millie, etc., etc. Good stuff. And oh, thank you, title. I feel it deeply in my bones, so I'm glad that it is good.
I
Hooray!
think actually why. I think I just found the address. I'm gonna not go in because that's gonna be for next time.
Yeah,
That is actually why part of why I think I work so well with Caitlin and why I enjoy working so much is that knowing not just writing stories for the sake of stories, but also for understanding why you love them so much is an important thing.
yeah.
Like curiosity, how long before release do you start planning the TFT comics? Okay. Really depends. Um we try to get them as ahead as possible because, people need to have time to draw. We recently implemented a system which will make it a lot easier to do that, which is great because we want to be able to have enough time before in order for like artists, guest artists, people to be able to come in and participate. And sometimes they need a lot of time. But yeah, we have basic story ideas for the next like 5 or 6 TFTs. Generally, we have ideas for them. Some are already in development, some are just concepts. Um, I'm gonna give a peek behind the curtain and say that I only finished the TFT that was released today. Yesterday, I had some parts I was not happy with. I'm a late boy, but it is done.
But you got it
Uh,
on time, so that's cool.
I got it. Thorn, meanwhile, finished the art ages ago. Thorn is a responsible artist. But
Oh, we gotta start working on November's. Excuse me. Or
yes,
yeah,
yes.
October, November, December. Yeah, we gotta start working on November's and December's.
Is November
And
is the one about we have we need art, and then December's is I kind of want to tell them December's because it's so insane. I kind of want to tell them what December's is as a
I mean,
excuse.
we can mention what the two are.
Oh,
November is the Harvest Possum, wherein Piper brings home a feral possum,
and I
and
acknowledge that there's 2 Pipers in a row because Piper does. I haven't done a Piper story in a while, and this one is too good to pass up.
yep, yep. And then
I don't
the
know,
second one was, isn't
it's not
it?
Piper. It can't be Piper because of the art. That's right. It has to be Timberlane, I believe.
Yeah, Tamberlane. Tamberlane is the one who is the quote unquote author of the second one, which is basically a report on her year
For school. She had to write
for
a report for
school.
school. And I am not only writing it, but I am drawing it because I suck at drawing and I draw like a 5-year-old child. And I'm just not 5, but I draw worse than she probably does. So I'll push myself as hard as I can to draw as good as Tamerlane, who I believe is like 7 does. So yeah, the December Tale from Treehollow is going to be drawn by the artist. I mean, by the author, by a writer who has never been able to draw in his life, and I will draw it in the style of a children's report. And I'm very, very, very excited about it.
Hey Miff, thank you so much for the raid. Welcome everybody.
Welcome. I feel bad that we're wrapping up soon. People
I
are
know,
jumping
right?
in. But let's talk about what the stream is so people who are just tuning in can know for next time.
Yeah, yeah. Every Thursday, Ari and I get together on here and do Treehollow Talks, where we pick a topic about creating things, because we are both webcomic authors, artist, creator, etc. Um, and we are he plays a video game right now. He's playing Stray, and I draw slash also do some giveaway doodles, and raffle them off. So that's what we usually do on Thursdays. Tomorrow we're going to be doing a panel for CozyCon, which is going to be all about making your own webcomic and sort of the barriers that you might feel are barriers to starting and systematically knocking them down so that you can just rev up and go.
Yes,
It's gonna be awesome.
we're very
And
excited about it.
Luker, yes, we are going to use Meta's sketches as the actual thing. That is
My art is
100%
my
it.
art is going to be the art. It's gonna be horrendous. I'm gonna try to like make it look like it's on a piece of paper because it has to be.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, so yeah, so for just kind of a review for those, do we record these streams or are they just one and disappear?
No, they are recorded. They go up on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/pixelprism. I figure I discovered like 2 days ago that I could change that finally.
Yes.
But since all of my links are up for CozyCon, I figured maybe I should wait until Cozy
Yeah.
is over.
Yeah. So we've had so far we talked about the first time we met, we talked about what was the first time? No, the second one. What was the
The
first one?
first time we talked about
Was it
animal
settings?
protagonists,
Animal protagonist. The
and
second
then
one was post-apocalyptic settings, like the one we are currently playing right now.
right.
And the third was action sequences today. So you can always look back. We basically, talk about our advice, experience, and oh, this is really good. What a great way to end. Look at this. What a great little.
Right? And we basically just like chat with the chat, and like it's like a big old round table where we all just like talk together about creative concepts, and it's kind of a joint endeavor with the chat. It's fun. Um,
And Caitlin does 5-minute doodle raffles, and they're great.
yeah. Whoop, there we go. Now at least
And
we
you
see some.
sometimes get sneak. And I assume people in here know, but for those who don't, who maybe came in from a raid, Caitlin is the artist and author of the head writer for Tamerlane, a webcomic. I am Ari Noble. I'm the writer for, not the artist for, but I'm the writer for a webcomic called Mothorial, and I serve as a co-writer for Tamerlane as well. So if you're interested in webcomics, you can go to the link that has been provided to see one of them. You can also go to, I'll let Caitlin
Oh,
yeah, there's that one. And also feel free to, if you want to put the Foxglove link in there, Foxglove is where we host these and other wonderful webcomics.
thanks,
You
Gunny.
can, there you go. And you can check them out. It's a Discord community. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, every Thursday, time permitting. It's been, no, we had to stop because of CozyCon prep, but in general, we every week we'll come on here on Thursday. I'll play games like this and other games that you guys suggest, and we'll just talk about story dev
Yeah.
and making webcomics, making any script, whatever. Just kind of giving our experience and our thoughts and advice, and getting advice from you guys because you guys bring really cool stuff to the table too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
This is a lot of fun with you guys. Speaking of, do you guys have any like requests for any topics that you'd like us to cover? Always happy to. This one was requested, I think, by Sunny last time.
yes, I
Talk about
believe
action.
so.
So yeah, if anybody has any requests, just let us know, and we will happily do it. And you guys are awesome.
Yes. So, well, I really want to chip this cop robot again, but I'm sleeping. I'll do it when I come at him.
uh, bye, Mythics. Go. Good luck on your stream in Picardo.
And
You
thank
are
you
great.
so much. We really appreciate it.
Ooh, management of backstory. Ooh,
Oh,
way to kill
okay. Yeah,
us. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm already like juicy because that is something that I am passionate about is backstories.
Yes,
As Caitlin has seen, I am insistent on like mapping all that stuff out, and it's very I have so much fun with it.
it's so good.
Great.
All
Yeah, so
right.
that'll be the so the next topic will be backstories of management of backstory threads. That's going to be our topic for next Thursday. Presumably we do it next. I think we should be down. I don't think we have any
Yeah,
code to Sunday, so that's gonna be good.
yeah, yeah.
Lovely. And that's another one would be great. Character morality and alignment would be a wonderful future topic. We should put a suggestion place. People can put suggestions on the Discord
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for topics. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll start a thread maybe in Tamberlane, and people can drop suggestions there.
These are both very good. So I'm gonna take a picture so I don't forget. Because I don't remember things unless they're complicated character backstories. Because my brain is broken, it can only remember things that don't actually exist.
Haha, big
I remember
nerd.
the I remember the actor names who played characters from a show I watched in 2004, but I can't remember where I left my keys. And that's why I write stories and I don't drive cars.
All right. I think we are. Let's see. Do I have? Hold on. Oh, yeah, I do. Ta-da! The ending screen. With a somewhat broken thing. But hey, thanks for coming, and we will see you guys next week. And hopefully see you tomorrow at the CozyCon panel, which will
Yeah,
be
thank you so much.
at a time that you should check on the CozyCon website
I'm
because
gonna
I
check
don't
right now because
remember.
I really want to say it. So let me check what it
Okay,
is.
good.
Very.
Yeah, you check because I
I
don't
can
know numbers. Yeah, thank you
because
guys so much for coming. You guys are
it's
all
going
great.
to be Central Time. It's going to be at 5:30 Central Time, which I believe is
Yeah.
6:30 Eastern Time, and 3:30 West Coast Time.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're in the West Coast, it'll be in the afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be in the evening. If you're in the Central Coast, who are you? I've never met anyone who's in the Center Coast. It's always East and West. But I hope you're having a good time there. Thank you, thank you so much for joining us, guys. I hope you all have a wonderful night
Yeah, have a good night, guys.
and big.
Bye.
And I hope whatever fight you're about to fight, you win it.
Yeah, win it. Win it.
But at
And
what
don't.
cost?
But at what cost?